Thank you, Srijan, for the lovely introduction to Family Larger System Perspective. I'm going to talk about our ecomap and the various systems involved in with our family. Here we have Mrs. Dees and Walter, and we have a strong tie between them, and I'm going to talk about them as a unit. Please be aware that some of the systems I talk about will tie together, but I may talk about them separately. First, I'll talk about the systems that we saw as minimally present with Mrs. Dees and Walter. I know someone talked earlier about the assumptions that we made through the film we watched, and I may touch on those also. So first I want to start with SSA, Social Security Administration, which is a federal program. We believe Walter is receiving SSI through disability and that Mrs. Dees is receiving retirement. So these are some financial assistance that they're getting and one system that they're in touch with. Next I'm going to talk about church. We saw both Mrs. Dees and Walter present at church, and we heard positive comments from other church members, but we kept as minimally in touch with our family as we didn't see any follow-up support from them or when things were difficult. Now I'd like to talk about education. We talked with some of the professionals at Walter's school and heard positive remarks about Walter's behavior and improvements, but we also kept them in the similar boat as church, as we didn't see them as present when Walter was having difficulty in the film. Next I'm going to touch on family. We saw a couple of Mrs. Dees' daughters present, and we did see a large family gathering, but again there was limited support when Mrs. Dees and Walter really needed it. Next up is the Department of Social and Health Services. We know Walter is receiving Medicaid and that the family is receiving food assistance, but again we're seeing minimal support, minimal resources from the state program. For the next systems I'm going to talk about they're ones that we saw with negative interactions with the family. So the first one I'm going to talk about is CPS, Child Protective Services. We determined this was a negative interaction because of the way that Walter was removed from the home immediately after the fire that we observed. We would have hoped for more of an investigation or an assessment. From that standpoint, we feel CPS left a sour taste in the family. Next up is mental health. The way that we saw the negative interaction here was also the immediate removal of Walter from Mrs. Dees' home instead of figuring out how he can be supported in his mental health and having that addressed. And we saw it in the admission director for the residential program who made the assumption that his difficulties were due to drug use while he was in utero. Next up is economy. Though we know the family is getting along and doing okay, we discussed a negative interaction with the economic system here in the U.S. and can't help but think that there were factors that may have, kept them down below and not been able to access some of these resources that we've talked about. Lastly, I'm going to talk about systems that our group believed, or we saw no connection with the family, but our group believed may have benefited the family had they interacted with these systems. First off is the legal system. We didn't see any interaction with Mrs. Dees and thought it might have helped to have her talk with an attorney or someone who could provide her with her rights as a guardian or could help her get Walter back in her care. Finally, I'm going to talk about kinship network. Though this may not be a big system, we felt it was lacking in the family situation. This can come from community support as support groups, connecting with other kinship providers, or state financial or other kinds of support. We felt it was important to include in our ecomap, and we'll continue to talk about kinship through the rest